Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am the Omni viewer, and welcome to Omni at the Movies. Only in this case it's more like Omni at the DVR because I'm not reviewing a movie, rather I'm reviewing a pilot or first episode for a new TV series. And to understand why I'm doing that, we're gonna need a little backstory. This is necessary so you know what this series is and where it's coming from. Alright, so back in 2011, after developing 2 seasons of the wildly successful My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, Lauren Faust parted ways with Hasbro and returned to Cartoon Network, where she'd gotten most of her big breaks with shows like the Powerpuff Girls and Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. At that time, Cartoon Network was developing a new Saturday morning block, as it turned out one of the last ones ever, called DC Nation, which was focused and themed around DC Comics. It ran a combination of full-length series and short subjects ranging from trivia and teases of upcoming DC projects to short cartoons clearly meant to test the waters for any new potential series. The best received of these short series was Amethyst Princess of Gemworld. The one that actually got a series was New Teen Titans, which would eventually become Teen Titans Go. This is the world we live in. Anyway, Lauren Faust contributed to the short side of things with Super Best Friends Forever, which was focused on Batgirl, Supergirl, and Wonder Girl, the rarely seen teenage sidekick of Wonder Woman. Why you rarely see her is a completely different video all unto itself, way too complicated to get into here. It only lasted around 5 episodes, and like practically everything else connected to DC Nation, it was mostly forgotten by all but a few who had seen it. What eventually did become a series was DC Superhero Girls, which looked and felt kind of like a throwback to girls' cartoons from the late 90s and early 2000s. Not necessarily in a good way. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't nearly as cringe-inducing, but I also don't think many people would say it was great. Nevertheless, it ran for 5 seasons and a handful of direct-to-video works, but it was officially canceled in 2018. Or was it? Attached to the theatrical film Teen Titans Go to the Movies, I can't believe that exists either, was a short animated piece that essentially remade an episode of Super Best Friends Forever, only with a different animation style, an expanded cast, and Wonder Girl replaced by a younger version of Wonder Woman. And now it was called DC Superhero Girls. This was followed by a series of internet shorts done in that same style, leading up to the series premiere that I am reviewing for you today. So that's what we're dealing with here. This is a reboot taking inspiration from a series that failed to launch based on long-established popular characters developed by a major name in the industry whose claims to fame are successfully rebooting series to global appeal and developing interesting female protagonists. So, with all of that in mind, how was this pilot? It's pretty good. Plot-wise, this isn't really breaking any new ground. This is a very straightforward premiere, carried more by the strength of its characters than by the strength of its story. And I've gotta say, it's a good cast of characters. Just so you know who we're dealing with going in, our main characters are Wonder Woman, Batgirl, Supergirl, Bumblebee, Zatanna, and Green Lantern Jessica Cruz. She's a fairly new character in the DC world. Now, in the days leading up to this series premiere, a lot of people were making comparisons between this and Friendship is Magic. On the surface, it does seem like Lauren Faust recycled her formula. 6 primary characters who are all female, each representing a particular archetype. And Lauren Faust certainly loves these archetypes. The fashionista, the jock, the timid one, so on down the line. You know how it goes. I will not deny that the formula is in place, but it's not the same formula. It has been tweaked a little. After all, these characters haven't been made from scratch. They are pre-established. Some of them have legacies that are decades long. So a balance is struck between reinterpreting them through that formula while staying true to that legacy. You may be familiar with the old saying, good characters are flawed characters. No one really wants to see a character who's perfect in every way because that character can't really grow or struggle. I mean, of course there are exceptions, but that's generally the rule. When it comes to female characters especially, a lack of flaws can result in the label of Mary Sue being applied. This does not happen in DC superhero girls. Each of our heroines has a good balance of strengths and weaknesses that makes them well-rounded and creates the sense that they still have a lot of development left to do. Batgirl is frighteningly observant and has gadgets for every occasion, but she's also scatterbrained and tends to lack focus at crucial moments. Supergirl has all the powers of Superman, but she's reckless and can be kind of a jerk at times. Bumblebee is a technological genius who can make a supersuit from garbage, but she's got self-esteem issues and her inventions often tend to malfunction. Zatanna has phenomenal cosmic powers, but she's also an egotist who tends to showboat, which can prevent her from actually doing the right thing in time. Jessica has a Green Lantern ring that's limited only by her imagination and the amount of charge it has, but she's completely sworn off violence, even if fighting would actually be of benefit to the situation. Wonder Woman is great at being a hero, but she's clueless when it comes to pretty much everything else. Obviously, since this is the first episode, we don't get full development and full arc resolution, but I would say I'm interested to see where these characters can potentially go. The action is kind of a mixed bag. It's expertly timed and doesn't shy away from going into full knockdown, drag-out action, something I'm sure Lauren Faust was hoping to do but couldn't in My Little Pony. But on the other hand, most of the opponents faced in this pilot are unthinking, disposable robots. The best fight is a sparring match between Wonder Woman and Supergirl, and that comes at the very beginning. The reason that's the best fight is because we have two established characters that we actually can get invested in, as opposed to characters we are invested in fighting against disposable machines. The term mixed bag also applies to the humor. There are parts which are genuinely funny, there are parts which are kind of eye-rolling, and there are parts that just kind of fall flat. Thankfully, the ratio skews more towards working than not working, but it would have been nice if we could have had consistency across the board. The art style is certainly distinct and not like anything else currently airing at the moment, at least as far as I've seen. The animation is fluid during both action scenes and just regular slice-of-life moments, and the character designs are all distinct from each other and visually appealing. I actually have to say my favorite costume for the pilot is Bumblebee. I think it's just a perfect visual representation of her character. I mean, look at this. It's comprised of whatever she could get her hands on, held together by duct tape. The fact that it functions is impressive, but it's not refined. And I think that's an interesting costume. I know she'll be getting a new one eventually, but I really hope they hold off on giving it to her for as long as possible, because I like this costume and I'll miss it when it's gone. As for what didn't work about the pilot, well, let's start with Wonder Woman. I'm not saying Wonder Woman is bad here, but it's not original. If you've seen the 2017 live-action movie, that's basically what they did here, with only a few minor changes. Now don't get me wrong, I understand why they did that, just like I understand why they went with Wonder Woman instead of Wonder Girl. It's because the live-action movie was a huge success and they want to ride on its coattails. I just wish they'd done something a bit more with it than rehashing the movie. But again, I understand why, so I'm not going to judge it too harshly for that. I will be a bit harsher when it comes to the contrivance. I did say the story was the pilot's weak point, and man, does that stick out when it comes to how contrived it can be. What I'm about to tell you is not even an exaggeration. Batgirl shows up at Metropolis High School, and she's not even there for a full minute before she has either figured out or has started to suspect which of her female classmates are also superheroes, or at least superpowered. Those are specifically Bumblebee, Green Lantern, Supergirl, and Zatanna. She comes up with a very improbable and ill-conceived plan to meet them, which works in spite of itself, and then Wonder Woman gets thrown in there too because she had to show up somehow. It happens almost that quickly, and it feels just as ridiculous as I'm describing it. I'm also kinda disappointed by the portrayal of Jim Gordon in this series. Commissioner Gordon is another character with quite a bit of legacy, you know. He's the only truly good cop in Gotham, one of the few people trusted by the Batman. And here, he's reduced to a rather generic, out-of-touch father of a teenage daughter. In fact, he almost appears senile. Now look, I get it. The show is called DC Superhero Girls. The show's not about him. But it's Jim Gordon. He deserves a little more respect than what he's given here. He's a police officer, possibly retired in this version, and he appears to be a single father. I would think that might result in him having a slightly different relationship with his daughter than what we see here. And if the reasoning behind this choice was that strong female characters don't have male role models, well, you already kinda blew that by having Batgirl idolize Batman, so what gives? I don't know, I'd kinda like to see this change, but it's probably not going to. Then again, Commissioner Gordon's hardly in this pilot. The same can be said for the villain. The villain reveal is treated in the pilot like it's a twist, but it's not, so I'm just gonna go ahead and spoil it for you. If you haven't seen the pilot yet and you really don't want to know who it is going in, jump ahead to this time, but trust me, you'll figure it out from the very beginning. It's not a twist at all. Anyway, just going ahead with it, the villain is Lena Luthor. Lena has been interpreted numerous ways in the comics, but here she's portrayed as Lex Luthor's younger sister. And she is portrayed horribly here. She doesn't actually say anything until the finale, and her evil master plan is so incredibly stupid that the main characters almost break the fourth wall in commenting on it, as if the writers were somehow trying to apologize to the audience for insulting their intelligence. Honestly, Lena's inclusion almost feels like an afterthought. It's as if they were developing this during pre-production, and they'd gotten really far ahead with the storyboarding and the script writing, and then suddenly someone said, "Hey, we don't have a villain," and so they just slapped this in at the last second because that was all they had time to do. At least, I hope that's what happened, because otherwise, this was really the best they could come up with, and I don't want to believe that. So the pilot is far from perfect. I think we've established that. But at the same time, it's not bad. It didn't leave nearly as much of an impact on me as, say, the pilot for the DuckTales reboot. By the way, that series is still amazing halfway through season 2. But I certainly would be interested to see where DC Superhero Girls goes from here. Hopefully, where it goes is uphill. So that's what I watched over the weekend in place of Captain Marvel. If you happen to see it as well, you're free to leave your thoughts in the comments section below, as always. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it, as well as subscribe to the channel for more content of a similar nature. Also, check the description for links to our Twitter, DeviantArt, and Patreon pages, as well as the Amazon link for the novel Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, penned by yours truly. Thank you all, and we appreciate your support.